Today we're taking a look at writing Lego participle phrase. A participle phrase is a very good tool we could use in writing to describe different things that are going on where we want to use verbs to describe something that's happening. Our essential question today is how do I use a verb to describe things? Let's take a look. First, a participle is a verb form, or sometimes called a verbal. The present participle are things like reading, walking, leaving, wanting, those ing words. You also have past participles, which are the past tense, with often with eds like walked, but you have the irregular ones like read or left. And wanted is another example of a past participle. With either form of participle, you can use them to describe things in a participle phrase. Now, this is just a modifier. The same way we use adjectives and adverbs and we use prepositional phrases, we can use a participle phrase to describe just about anything. So let's take a look at how we do that. First, it's going to start with the participle and it's going to be next to what it's modifying. So the students sitting in my room ask me a question. Next, we have the students confused by the assignment ask me a question. Both of those are participle phrases. One uses the past participle with the ed, one uses the present participle with the ing, but they are both participle phrases and they are both describing the students. Now, when you look at this and you might be thinking, well, one of these uses commas and one doesn't. That definitely makes it confusing. One of the trickiest parts about participle phrases is knowing when to use a comma. Here's how you figure it out. First, if you use a participle phrase to start a sentence, always use a comma. Sitting in my room, comma, the students ask me a question. Same thing with when we use a participle phrase or prepositional phrase, even when we get to complex sentences with what we're going to call subordinate clauses, you always put a comma after that phrase that starts the sentence. So if we're starting the sentence, we definitely use the comma. Otherwise, you use it when the information is extra information. So right here, the students confused by the assignment. Right now, we could actually know who the students are and which students we're talking about without this bit of information, but this gives us more information about the students. Up here, the students sitting in my room. Right now, this is describing which students it is, not how the students are feeling. Which students are we talking about? If it's possible it's students outside the room, if it's possible it's completely different students, then we do not, if it's possible there's other students, we don't have to put the comma because this is needed just to know which students we're talking about. In general, though, if we're just using it to describe and give extra information, we have to add the commas. And that's how it works. What are some ways that we can use participle phrases? One thing I realize is you already are. In our topic sentence, I have you guys write a participle phrase in every one. In the prologue of the story Steelheart, comma, written by Brandon Sanderson, comma, the author created dramatic tone through the deaths of innocent people. Now, this is about a very interesting book called Steelheart, written by a great author. But what you should notice is written by Brandon Sanderson. That's a participle phrase. So we went through and we're adding a participle phrase here in every topic sentence that we write. So that's a very nice shortcut for you guys to make sure that you have a participle phrase, which will make your writing a little bit stronger. You probably have about 2 participle phrases in a paragraph. 2 participle phrases is usually a good amount. So if we put one here, another good place we could put it is in an evidence sentence. One example of how to do this, or really 2 examples, is when we're giving that little bit of context about what the author writes. That's a really good place that we could go through when we could put that participle phrase. Describing Hooverville, Curtis wrote, the city was bigger than I thought. Just putting those 2 words in there tells us what was going on with the author when it happened, or with a character. Frustrated by losing the coin toss, comma, Bud said shucks. Right there. We have a participle phrase that describes Bud, tells us exactly what's going on, and we're ready to get going. We're ready to get our evidence sentence going, and we have a good setup for it. So look for ways to use participle phrases. Your topic sentence and your evidence sentences are great spots for it. And use this Lego just to plug it in there when it helps to make your writing a little bit better.